Hello family, my name is Chris, I am your home gamer dad, and we gotta go fast as we jump and roll and make our way through various bright colored stages, smashing robots, saving our little furry friends from an evil maniacal egg-shaped doctor, and getting ready to run, fly, glide, and hammer our way to the goal. That is right, today I will be showing you guys how to play Sonic Roll. Sonic Roll is the latest in the video game inspired games from KESS Entertainment. You may be familiar with Contra or the very first game I ever covered on this channel, Mega Man Adventures. Sonic Roll is a 1 to 4 player game that takes roughly an hour to 2 to play depending on player count. And as always with my how to plays, if you are looking for any specific rule at all, be sure to check the timestamps down below. Also, I will be doing a few playthroughs of this in order to be able to show off exactly what each one of the characters do, a little more in depth about each of the levels, and then of course, getting a good idea about how this game plays and if it is something that you yourself would be interested in. But before we tackle any of that, before we learn how to jump, to roll, to spin, to do whatever we need to do to stop Eggman, we first need to learn everything else about the game. So, what you waiting for? Let's go show Eggman who's boss. Sonic Roll, designed by Anthony Thorpe and published by KESS Entertainment, is a dice rolling and drafting game where the players take on the role of popular Sonic characters from classic Sonic the Hedgehog games and speed their way through various zones, collecting rings, defeating Badniks, saving their friends, and confronting the boss. Along the way, they will occasionally enter a bonus stage and hope to earn valuable Chaos Emeralds. And of course, working together is key, but doing your own thing in your own style will earn you more points in the end. Will the team be strong enough to stop Eggman from conquering all? Let's roll to find out. Setup begins with each player choosing a character to play as, either by random or they can choose by hand. Just remember that some characters, like Sonic, will require extra tokens or extra cards like Knuckles or whatever in order to be able to proceed with their special abilities. Everything is written on their cards so you know what you have to give them extra. Each one of these characters has their own set of special abilities. I will go over those when I play as them in my sessions. Once each player has selected which characters they want to play as, give each of them 3 life tokens and 1 boost token apiece. Next, you're going to want to choose the zone to play through. If you're doing the campaign mode, you must tackle them in order of Green Hill, Stardust Speedway, Lava Reef, and finally the Chemical Plant. If this is your first time playing this game, or what I'm going to be doing for this example, choose the Green Hill zone. All the rest go back into the box, and we collect what we need in order to enter the Green Hill zone. After you've chosen your zone, you're going to want to find the matching zone and Badnik cards that go with it. The zone cards all say the zone name on front, so you should be able to easily find those. Put those aside, we'll deal with that in a moment. The Badnik cards for each of the zones actually have a code in the bottom right, which are the initials of where you're going. So for Green Hill Zone, they will all say GHZ in the bottom right. You'll find every Badnik in the box with those initials. Mix them up, shuffle them together, and you're going to leave them within reach of all the players. For the zone cards, you're going to want to shuffle these together and you're going to make a deck based on player count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. For a 1 to 2 player game, which is what we're setting up right now, you're going to want 8 cards. If you have 3 players, you'll want 9. If you have 4 players, you will want 10. In any case, as I stated, this is going to be for a 1 to 2 player game, so we have 8 cards up here. The rest are going to go back into the box. From the deck you just created, deal a zone card out to the top, the middle, and the bottom routes to the act, lining them up as best as you can with their rewards. It's not going to be an exact lineup, but you'll get the idea of which route is attached to which one of the rewards. Then get 7 time tokens and place them next to the zone deck. Finally, for zone setup, you're going to want to flip over your zone card and see who the boss of the zone is. You're then going to go find the boss attack card that matches that boss, as well as the pile of boss pattern cards. These don't have any codes on them or whatever. You're just going to find all of them that you can, shuffle them together. You won't need these right now, not until we start the boss section of the game, but just kind of leave them over to the side and we'll get back to them later. In another area close to the players, you're going to want to find and shuffle together the power-up card stack, leaving that within grasp of everybody. You'll then want to find the 7 Chaos Emeralds, shuffle those as well, and leave them near the power-ups. And then finally, you're going to want to go find the 16 blue sphere tiles with, well, the blue sphere side up. You're going to shuffle them together, and you can arrange these in one of 2 ways depending on table space. If you don't have a lot of space, you can just leave it as a singular stack, or you can set it up in more of a grid pattern 4 by 4, making it a little bit more accurate towards the game, and it's like a lot more fun that way in order to play. So you put everything down in here in a 4 by 4 grid, should be just enough tiles for all of that. And that is your bonus stage. The final thing in setup is to create various piles of tokens and other items that you're going to need throughout the course of the game. This includes 12 yellow dice, 12 red dice, 12 blue dice, 4 black dice, a pile of boost tokens, a pile of rings worth 1, a pile of rings worth 5, and your animal friend tokens. The fastest player goes first, or you can choose it at random. In Sonic Roll, the players are going to run, jump, and spin their way through each of the zones, trying to stop Dr. Eggman from building his evil empire. In a standard game, getting to the boss and defeating them is the game's win condition. In campaign mode, it goes a little bit deeper, but I'll go over that a little bit later. The players lose if either one of them run out of lives, so they lose all 3 lives, or if all of the time tokens have been collected. A player's turn consists of 4 steps, which we will be going over one by one. Roll action, spending, reroll, and then the end turn. In the roll action step, players are going to build their initial dice pool using the abilities that are on their card. Each character does have 3 unique abilities, and as I mentioned before, I will go over them in a little bit more detail when I do my sessions. But for Sonic, for example, he has Super Peel Out, Spin Dash, and Drop Dash. Your first step is to choose which one of these abilities you want to activate on your turn, and then roll the associated dice shown. Each ability has an effect that applies to some part of their turn. If it says roll, it only applies to the roll action step when building the dice pool. Anything that says reroll effects happen during the reroll step, spend effects happen when they spend dice, and avoid happens whenever they try to take damage or to change the result of a die. Always make sure you read what each ability does, as each turn can be completely different depending on what you choose. For example, if I do Super Peel Out, I am able to roll 6 blue dice. But the thing is, I have to discard the lowest result/results of this dice pool, meaning that out of these 6 dice, I would have to discard this 1. If this happened to also be a 2, matching it up here, then I would have to discard all 3 of these 2s because they were all the lowest. Make sure you read it. There's further explanations in the rule book. And then, of course, like I said, I'll be going over these when I do my sessions. After the player has created their dice pool, they move on to the spending step, which is where the main action for the game happens. From the dice pool, they choose 1 dice to apply to either a zone here that they have open or to an available Badnik card that could possibly take 1 of the dice. After a single dice is spent, the players must re-roll their dice into their dice pool in the re-roll step or go straight to the end turn step. This is different for blue dice. I'll go over that momentarily, but just for the sake of argument here, let's say that this was Sonic's initial roll. He used Spin Dash. He would use the 1 to go here, and then he would have to re-roll each one of these dice in order to go ahead and do another spending step. Now, there's other consequences and rewards that go with that, so let's move into that part, and I'll explain what it actually means when spending dice. Each one of these squares along the routes are called challenges, and they represent the various obstacles and other things that the heroes have to overcome as they move from left to right across each one of the routes to the end of the particular zone. Each square generally has a number and a color associated to it, with the exception of these bumpers that I'll explain in a moment, but this pretty much tells you the rules of what dice can apply to those particular challenges. When placing a dice, the players must follow 3 rules. The space must be filled from left to right, so you can only work on your far left spaces over here. Number 2, the condition to clear these zones must be matching the number and the color that you're placing the dice. If it is white, it could be any dice. So for example, this space right here requires a red 1 in order to be able to clear. However, this one up here could be a red 1, a yellow 1, or a blue 1, whatever one of the dice that the player has. And finally, the players must stay on the same path. So if you put the red 1 here, you can't go up and start the top route. You have to go to the next available spot to the right, following these little arrows. If you move yourself to the middle and then over to the side, you can diverge once again, going to either the top or the bottom, so long as you're following wherever the blue arrows go to the next challenge. Besides placing required numbers and dice along these challenges, you'll also find these bumper spaces occasionally. The way these work is that the first dice that goes on a bumper spot can be any color and any number, but then every dice following that has to be the same number. You may find spaces that are specifically colored along the way, but generally they're going to be any colored dice. So you're going to just take whatever dice you have right here, place it there, and then the next bumpers after that have to be the exact same number, which again means that they can be any color, but as long as they are the same number, then you move it along that way. Once you reach the end of the path, that's when you start following the same number and dice color rules that were mentioned before. The dice themselves also have special properties. When you spend one of these dice, something happens in a benefit. Blue dice are called run dice. Whenever a blue dice is spent, the player may spend another dice in their dice pool without re-rolling them. So if you spend a second blue dice, you'll be able to then place a third without rolling it, and so on and so forth. But again, that is may. The player may spend another one. It's completely optional. If the player chooses not to activate the run ability on the blue dice, then they must go right to the re-roll step with the available dice they have in their dice pool. Yellow dice are jump dice. Whenever a player spends a yellow dice, no matter where it is, they immediately gain 1 ring. This is in addition to any other rewards that they would receive from spending that dice in a challenge. Red dice are spin dice and are generally associated with dealing damage to Badniks. Whenever you use a red dice in order to fight one, these are generally your safest dice to roll to make sure that they don't hit you, and if you end up spending one in order to defeat a Badnik, you gain a token of an animal friend that's worth points at the end of the game. The final color, black, are hazard dice. These represent various dangers and are rolled as some parts of rewards at the end of challenges. After rolling an amount of hazard dice shown in the reward, if any of the dice rolled match a dice in the player's pool, that player takes damage. They cannot use boost tokens in order to re-roll the hazard dice to avoid the damage. Once a dice is placed, the player immediately takes the reward that's connected to that challenge. You'll be able to see which rewards go to which one depending on where they are on the card, and not all rewards are positive. Speaking of which, some of the positive rewards you can receive are these shoes right here, which are boost tokens. Boost tokens are used as a reroll mechanism in order to be able to reroll your entire dice pool in order to get better dice numbers for your characters. Gaining rings at these points means that the player gains that amount of rings that are shown, whether it be 3 or 2. Remember, if you use a yellow dice, you will always gain 1 plus whatever is listed in the reward. When a ring is earned, it goes to the player's held pile. These are not safe rings at all, because if they end up taking 1 damage, they lose all of their rings. Rings are worth points at the end of the game. In order to save these, in order to get the most points out of it, these star posts are used in order to save every ring that a player has held at that moment. You can't save a few, you have to save them all, or you save none at all. The big ring sends you to the bonus zone. Additionally, if you save 5 or more rings at a star post, you will also go to the bonus zone. Let us head over to that, and I'll show you how that works. When a player enters the bonus zone, this is their chance in order to try to find a Chaos Emerald hidden within the blue spheres here on the board. The first thing that they're going to do is they're going to choose a blue sphere to flip over and gain the rewards on the other side. Every one of these cards has a reward in the upper right corner, whether that be gaining a power-up, gaining a boost token, or in this case, gaining 1 ring. If they happen to flip over a tile that is this white star right here, they get to flip over another tile. If they happen to go ahead and flip over a card that has a red sphere on it, they're immediately kicked out of the bonus stage. They still gain the power-up or whatever reward is in the upper right corner, but they do not gain a chance to gain a Chaos Emerald for that run. They would have to go back into the bonus stage to try again. As you go through the bonus stage, every one of the tiles that have been discovered remain face up until a player finally finds the Chaos Emerald. Once they find a Chaos Emerald, they take the top one from the deck and add it to their list of stuff that they've collected, and then this gets reset, everything gets flipped back over, reshuffled together, and laid back out in a 4x4 manner. Chaos Emeralds are extremely powerful and can be used once per game. Each emerald has an effect listed on the bottom, usually adding a dice to the pool, followed by some type of ability. These are normally worth 50 points at the end of the game if they are unused, but if used, after it is fully resolved, the card flips over. It's still yours, it's worth a little bit less points by the end of the game, but you cannot activate it again until the next game. In campaign mode, once a Chaos Emerald is earned in the next game, anybody can use an available Chaos Emerald for 5 rings from their held supply. So this way everybody can use them. And the goal in campaign mode is to collect all 7 emeralds. When gaining power-ups, the player draws from the top card from the power-up deck to see if they either receive an item or a shield. Most items are one-time immediate use things that effects happens the moment they are earned. The majority are positive, though you may get something a little bit not so great added on. Shields are very helpful because they are equipped to the player's character and have a variety of different effects on them. A player may only have one shield attached at a time, and if they draw a new shield from the pile, they can choose either to keep the one they have or swap it out with the one that they drew. Furthermore, if a player takes damage while a shield is equipped, they lose the shield before they lose any of their held rings or lives. Negative effects on the zone cards include rolling set hazard dice. You'll see anywhere from 1 to 3 hazard dice that you have to roll. Losing dice from your dice pool, which means you have to immediately lose any one there. Gaining time tokens, thus making things a lot more difficult. Or gaining Badniks. If a space has an Eggman symbol head on it, the players draw 1 Badnik for themselves, and then they draw 1 Badnik for another player, thus putting out 2 of these guys whenever one of these are activated. The most a player can have are 3 Badniks each, and if everyone is at their limit, then no more Badniks are drawn. Badniks are the robot army that Dr. Eggman controls and contains Sonic's animal friends within. When a Badnik is gained, its effect immediately goes into play. The only way to get rid of a Badnik is by spending a red dice of the appropriate number in order to release the animal friend, or by spending the number and color right below that in order to avoid it completely. After a player has spent at least 1 dice on their turn, and if it wasn't blue or they chose not to use the run ability and there's more dice in the pool, they may then choose to re-roll by going into the re-roll step. And that means that they must re-roll every dice in their dice pool. The Perils of Re-rolling is that's when Badniks attack. The numbers in the upper left corner of the Badniks cards show when they actually deal damage to the player. Upon doing a reroll of dice, if they roll something and their dice happens to match the color number or even just the number of their Badnik, then that Badnik will do damage to the player, causing them to lose their shield, all their rings, or one of their lives. A player may use a boost token in order to re-roll all the dice in the hopes to avoid a contact with such a Badnik. The problem is that if you happen to roll again, you would need to spend another boost token to roll them all. Boost tokens roll all dice, re-roll all dice. You can't pick and choose which ones you want to roll with a boost token. Thing to note also is that Badniks can only attack on dice that are re-rolled, meaning that if you've earned a dice by some means in your game and you roll it, this dice roll is not going to take any damage from a Badnik, only on a re-roll. After a reroll, if the player still has no valid spots for dice, they take damage and can choose to either end their turn right there or try the reroll step once again. In any case, if a player has no shield or held rings and they take a damage, they have to flip a life token over to its death side. If they had any Badniks, they would immediately be discarded. The rest of their dice pool goes back into the supply, and their turn is immediately over. They do not take a time token because they lost a life due to not being able to put anything on the board. Remember that after that last life flips over, it is game over. Thing to note that a player will be considered invincible after taking damage, meaning that if multiple sources of damage are hitting the player at once, they only take it from one source. So for this example, if they happen to roll a yellow 6 in a reroll and they have both of these Badniks, even though this is a yellow 6 and this is just calling for a 6, they would only take 1 damage from the 2 of these, meaning that they would lose all of their rings. Once a player has spent any dice, re-rolled, or ended their turn, they become vulnerable to damage once again. In the end step, if a player has no more dice to re-roll or spend, then play passes on to the next player as they start to build their new dice pool. If a player still has dice and they choose to end their turn early between spending and re-roll, they do not suffer any damage, but they return all of their dice to the supply and they take a time token. Time token are negative points by the end of the game, and if all 7 are collected, then it's game over. Again, they will not take any damage if they choose not to do the reroll step. They lose all their dice, but they gain the time token, which is very bad. When a player finishes a zone by placing a dice in the rightmost spot, they gain the spot's reward first, and then they gain the reward for finishing that particular route. They remove all the dice from that particular card, and they gain the card in their player area. This is needed for a little bit later when it comes to scoring, but for right now, they just hold on to it. They then go to their pile of zone cards that they made at the beginning of the game, flip the next one over, and they repeat the processes again. After all of the cards have been flipped over, so the cards have gone through, the players have collected them, once the last card hits the ground, and it's needed to be replaced, then the main area ends and the boss battle begins. In the boss phase, you're going to remove all the remaining zone cards that you have, and you're going to flip over the act board, revealing the boss on the other side. You're going to then take your boss pattern cards and you're going to look down here at the boss's level. From there, you're going to place that many cards next to each one of the routes. So in this case, it would be 2 cards, one on top of each other, representing each one of these different routes in order to reach a spot that damages the boss. In the bottom left, you'll have the boss's health, so you're going to find that many of the little animal tokens and place them right here. Once the last animal token has been removed, the boss has been defeated. The boss pattern cards are similar to zone cards, with each having 1 or 2 challenge spaces on them, and each card has an upper and lower part, one more difficult than the other. The bottom ones are generally going to be easier to get through but have negative rewards. The top ones, you're going to have a little bit more challenge, but you'll be able to get to the boss unscathed. After you've placed a dice on one of the challenges and have resolved that completely, you remove that from the field, making it a little easier to get to the boss. Once all the challenges in a particular row have been removed by using dice, the boss is then able to be attacked. You attack them by placing a dice of the appropriate color and number right on the end, and that will do 1 damage to the boss. When spending dice to hit the boss, the dice remains there until the end of that player's turn. The player collects an animal friend token from the boss's health, and again, once the final one has been removed, then the boss is beaten. But if you cannot damage them again, then all the dice from that has damaged it removed, and then you replace the boss attack cards, you replace it with boss pattern cards equal to the boss's level. The boss also has a special attack card that moves from player to player, causing a special effect. This is kind of like a Badnik, or at least it's treated like it, but the players must take it even if they already have 3 Badniks. The players can attack this card by spending the required number and color in the upper right corner, and by doing so will flip the card over, revealing a different ability for this turn. At the end of that player's turn, it flips back to its side 1, and then it's passed over to another player. This card can never be discarded, and don't forget to watch out for its attack in the upper left corner as well, just like the Badniks. During the end phase of a player's turn, during the boss fight, if the boss still has HP left, you're going to refill all routes of the boss board with boss pattern cards. Remove any dice that you had on here that did damage to the card, shift over any leftover cards to the left, and then continue placing cards from left to right, top to bottom, in order to fill out the remainder of the boss attacks. After defeating the boss, the players go into final scoring phase, By using this page in the rulebook, you can see what's worth what, and whoever has the highest score wins. Keep in mind, this is still semi-cooperative, so even though we all took down the boss together, there's still going to be one person who has a better score than the others, and that is going to be the one that has the amazing feeling of beating Dr. Eggman and his evil robotic army. There are several modes to this game that you can play, everything from full competition to solo to a campaign mode. As mentioned before, the goal of campaign mode is to collect all the Chaos Emeralds through the zone. When a Chaos Emerald has been collected, anybody can use it on the next game so long as they pay 5 of their held rings in order to activate it. If you go through all of the zones and you still don't have any of the Chaos Emeralds, or you don't have all 7, feel free to go back through any zone that you want in order to be able to collect them all. Once all your Chaos Emeralds have been collected, you'll be able to unlock some very special surprises within the game, but I'm going to let you discover those on your own. Trust me, this is well worth it and an awesome reward for going through the game and collecting all of the Chaos Emeralds. And that's how you play Sonic Roll. If you have any questions at all, be sure to leave them down in the comment section below and I will get to them as soon as I can. Or if you're looking for anything specific about the game, be sure to check the timestamps. But of course, ask me anyway because I am right here in order to be able to help you understand anything that you don't. And of course, I would love to hear your particular opinion on this game. What did you think of the how to play? Is this something that you may be interested in? Are you looking forward to my sessions that are coming up soon in order to get a good idea about how it plays and flows? I'm very excited for this one. So overall, my opinion with the game is that this is a great, great Sonic game. It does have a really good pace to it, which is what you're expecting for a Sonic game. Doesn't go super fast, but turns constantly move along. And even though it's a semi-cooperative thing, you still are working together pretty much all the time in order to figure out the best ways to go, the best dice to use in order to get through all of the different challenges. And of course, using your abilities the best that you can one by one. Each one of the abilities really do represent one of the characters within Sonic Roll very well. You have those 4 characters that you can pick up, along with maybe something special should you finish campaign mode. But as I mentioned before, I'm going to leave that for you to discover yourselves. I do highly recommend you checking out Sonic Roll. It is a great time for up to 4 people. I think 3 is the sweet spot for this, 2 or 3 at least, because that really does keep things moving pretty quickly and you don't have to go through nearly as many zone cards as you would with higher player counts, but it really doesn't matter. I think this is a fantastic one that you should add. If you are a video game, board game collector like I am, this fits in very, very nicely. But again, I want to hear what your opinions are. What do you think? And are you looking forward to the sessions that I am working on for Sonic Roll? That means in order not to miss any more of the blue streak or any other fun videos I happen to put out for you to enjoy, be sure you are subscribed to the Home Gamer Dad. If you wish to support the channel even further, there are plenty of ways to do that down in the description section below. But in all honesty, your view, your like, your share, your comments go a long way to helping the channel grow. Special, huge thank you to KESS Entertainment for sending me a copy of this game so this way I can show you guys how to play and then of course take it down to the table and give you guys the session and the fun times playing this from beginning to end that I can't wait to get to. I'm not going to be doing a full campaign with this. It's going to be kind of like a pseudo campaign as well. But if you guys want to see more, I would love to hear that. Just be sure you're around for when these ones start going up, which hopefully should be soon, but we'll see how things go. In any other event, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope you guys learned something new about this game. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. We are family forever, gaming together. Whether you're going at the speed of sound or taking your time from point to point, you guys take care, and I will see you in the next one. Later, everyone.